Hi, my name is David Lincoln. I wanted to come on and just talk for a second about Think or Swim. I have a lot of friends who say, "Oh, you're in the stock market business? Oh, that's gambling," and they know nothing about it. And then they say, "Oh, I use Robinhood. Why don't you just use Robinhood? Why do you pay for commissions?" And I think that they have some good points, but I did want to talk a little bit about Thinkorswim. Now, you could use Robinhood to execute your trades, but get a copy of Thinkorswim. I believe it's free to just use Thinkorswim because it's a very powerful tool to help with stock or options trading. And I just wanted to go through a couple things today that you may not know about Thinkorswim that I use all the time. So let's just start out with looking at time and sales. So if you have a stock, and let's talk about Beyond Meat because that's a popular one for me right now, and you, if you go to the Analyze tab, okay, so here we are at Thinkorswim. Okay, so on the right side here we've got a list of, this is a watch list, and I have it set up so that I've got my VIX quote, and then I've got the VIX futures, the futures, going outward in time as they go down the screen. So I've got the front month, the second month, and I need to update that every month. But I've got my VIX futures, and I've got UVXY, and I've got my VVIX. So these are all like VIX related things. And I should have VXX. I don't know why I don't VXX. And at the top of this watch list, there is see this red little thing? Well, if you click on this and you make that red, then any other windows on this other side here that you match to it with red as well, when you click on one side over here, it brings up the screen on the other side. So now that these are both linked together, if I pick BYND over here, it's going to pull up everything BYND on the other side. So just some basics here. There's tabs across the top here, and Monitor is going to give you things such as your P&L information, which stocks you've traded, order history, this sort of thing, trade history, and there's an account statement, an account activity and positions going to tell you what your positions are right now, and you can look at stuff. There's a little spot over here if you click, and this is going to give you some defaults for your account. So you can set up, for example, what the default number of contracts for an order is, what the layout is for the page. There's all kinds of defaults here, and this is a handy spot to go to change some basic defaults for your setup. But okay, so that's Monitor. If we go to Trade here and then we click Active Trader, that's going to bring up a screen where you can actually make trades. And if we can kind of move stuff back and forth here by clicking on the borders and moving stuff around. So I've got a trade screen set up here. And if you look to the right of this screen, there are these buttons that you can press in. So here's like level 2. Now level 2 is it's going to give you bids and offers. Bids on the left side, offers on the right. The market's closed right now, but this is going to show you sort of the depth of bids and offers. If you look just at this screen on the right here, this is going to give you sort of bids on the left side in green and offers on the right side in red. And what you can do is you can press the minus button, and it will it'll like pull out, it'll like zoom out so that instead of seeing every single tick, you see every other tick or every 4 ticks, so that you can kind of zero in on where stuff is trading. If you have a really wide market and you just see one offer, one bid, it's really hard to tell what's going on. Okay, and another button you can click, which is super important here, is TS, which is time and sales. And this is blank in this case, but this is going to give you a running sampling of time and sales, what stuff's trading. So it'll be 1,000 at this price, 1,000 at that price, 500 at this price, etc. And I watch time and sales all the time because it gives me cues as to momentum of things. Now, the sampling of time and sales here, this is not every trade. It is a sampling of the trades, and that means that the data that TD Ameritrade pays for doesn't include every trade, but it's just kind of like a random sampling of trades. And I've actually asked Thinkorswim about this before because I wanted to know if they were possibly kind of able to sort of manipulate these numbers, because sometimes it seems like it kind of seemed like the data they were giving was not always painting a different picture than what was actually happening at times. So I did actually ask them about this time and sales, and it's basically a sampling of all the trades. So if we go into this Analyze tab here, now this is particularly interesting for options. We can kind of dig into time and sales a little bit better. So if you go to this Analyze tab here, and you click the first, which is Add Simulated Trades, you're going to see these different drop downs here. There's Trade Grid, there's Options Chain. Now, Trade Grid, it can give you individual markets on different specific options, like the July 30 call. It will show the bids and offers on different exchanges. Options Chain is going to be your traditional options screen, and so you can see what the option screens are for different options. And there's a whole bunch of stuff with Options Chain. I mean, I could go into how to configure Thinkorswim for days, but in general, under Options Chain, you have up here the layout, and there's several different layouts. You can do stuff based on seeing the open interest and volume every day, which is super important. You can set up things, and I have my own custom setups here. This is the way I like the screen set up, where it's going to show the bid and the offer in the options, and it's going to show how many are bid and how many are offered. That way you can kind of identify what might be a resting order in a book or something like that. I also like to have it set up so it shows my actual positions on the screen, so that I know exactly what my position is in a strike. So for example, here, when I look, I can see, oh, okay, I'm short 4 of the July 150 puts. And you can go ahead and customize these options chain layout any way you like. Like I said, I have my own little customizations here that I've put in. So if you wanted to customize it yourself, you just go to Customize, and you can pick from this huge drop-down list of different possibilities what you want to appear on your screen and set it up that way. You can see this is my one custom setup. It just has my position, theoretical price, and the size of bid and offer. Now, theoretical price is this next part on the right of the layout. And you really want to watch this because it doesn't update that. It puts in like weird dates and weird information. And so you want to make sure that you go in and you reset it if you're going to be using these theoretical values at all. And these theoretical values can help you out to kind of determine what the screen is kind of showing quote unquote fair value for a spread is or something. So for example, if you've got a spread that you're trying to trade, like the 170-165 put spread, and the markets are very wide, and there might be some little book that's bid for a 2-lot or something here. Now I have the sizes up here on the screen, so you can see like the 170 put here, 15 by 15. But you could use these theoretical values, and every time I look at these theoretical values, once again, I look right up to this theoretical price thing to make sure it's the right date and whatnot. You can use these numbers to help you figure out if the mid-market is really sort of a fair value based on where things are trading right now or not. So for example, I could subtract these two to find out what fair value for the spread, the 65-70 spread is. In this case, it would be $3.40 55 cents, for example, for the 65.70. You'll notice if you dig into this BYND, because it's extremely hard to borrow, you'll notice that the puts they're centered on a price that's kind of lower than the stock actually is. So an at-the-money put spread, so like if you look at the money right here, 160, you're going to see that like the puts are way higher priced than the calls. And that's due to the fact that the stock is very hard to borrow. So you'd much rather own puts and stock than be long the call. Being long a call, people need to sell stock to hedge against it, and it's very hard to sell stock. So people would much rather be long stock than long a call. And thus the calls are discounted and the puts are raised in value for a hard to borrow stock like BYND. And this can get kind of confusing because if you look at like a put spread, you think that all the put spreads seem very overvalued. So if you look at in July, at the money right now is 160, right? If you look at the 165, 155 put spread, you would think, well, there's probably a 50% chance of that finishing in the money, but the actual value of the spread is a lot higher than that. And it's once again due to this whole hard to borrow situation. So looking at these markets for BYND can be a little bit confusing. But let's go back to Thinkorswim here. Okay, so time and sales is another, well, let's go to the next tab, options statistics. All right, now this is very useful as well. And unfortunately, in this case, some of these boxes are blank right now, but these 52-week implied volatility, high and low. Okay, so think of it as IV here, implied volatility. That's going to be option prices, okay? Historical volatility is going to be, HV, is going to be how much the stock is moving around. So if you have a stock that's moving around a lot more than the option prices, then you'd want to be long options, right? If you have a stock, option prices are really high, but the stock's not moving at all, you'd rather be short options. That's just sort of a basic relationship between these two. And current percentile is going to tell you where in the range historically these two are, option prices and historical volatility. Now, in general terms, if implied volatility in the options is very high percentile right now, then you might want to sell some long-term volatility or Vega. If it's currently very low in long-term, then you might want to buy some Vega and wait it out for it to go back to like the middle. If it's right in the middle of the range, then you might not want to have any big position either way. Implied volatility, this is just a general number for the entire stock. It's based on a weighting. I don't put too much into that. VWAP here. Okay, so VWAP is basically the average price that the stock has been traded during that day when you consider the volume. So if it opened 169 and most of the trading happened up there for the day, and then it went way down after that, but most of the volume happened up above, then VWAP will be higher. If most of the volume happened at a lower price, VWAP will be lower. People use VWAP as an indicator a lot, and I know that institutional traders use it a lot when they're considering when to buy or sell something. They really want to be able to show their boss, oh, well, I know we had to get out of this position and I was able to sell. Most of the shares I sold were higher than the average today, so I did well in getting out of it. They'll look at things like that. As far as the middle here, trade analysis, you can see, you can just kind of generally see, if you see that most options were traded at the bid or below, then that would kind of give you an indication that they were, mostly option sellers. And if most of the options were in the offer, then that would be mostly option buyers. And usually it's kind of like a mixed bag and hard to tell like it is right now. As far as sizzle, I am not, I don't know what sizzle means, so we'll have to come back to that one. All right, so let's move on to options, time, and sales. Now, this is a very important thing for me personally, and I follow this all the time just to kind of see what the trend is, what's going on right now, what's trading, and I kind of look at what big trades are going on. Now, it's going to usually give you up here some of the top biggest trades, maybe the top 2 biggest trades, and you can, if we change the filter here and we filter for just a specific month, then it'll change which top trades it gives here. But this can be very interesting, and certainly like when I come in on the open of trading, especially in like a less liquid issue, I'm immediately going to pull up my time and sales and see what starts trading in the morning. First thing in the morning, we look for a trend. What's starting? What's the trend for today? There's going to be a trend every day. Look, what's the trend today? Oh, is it that the president tweeted? Is it Apple's coming out with something? There's always a trend. Okay, so if we go over here on options, time and sales to the right, there's a configure filters button. This way we can pick, okay, well, I just care about September options. So I'm going to click September. It's only going to show me what happened in September because that's what I'm trading right now. And I see, wow, big trade, September 240 calls. Okay, and it says 200 traded, and it looks like it traded mid-market because it shows you here the market and what price it traded. So it traded kind of in the middle of the market. So we don't know really if it was a buyer or a seller. However, when we look across the screen here, we see, oh, it was a spread. So how would we figure out a spread? Means there's more than one part to the trade. So how would we find out what the other part of that spread is? Well, if we go back here to the series and we back out to everything, we can see what time this happened. Well, it just disappeared when I backed out everything. So let me put that back to September. So it's the September 240 calls, and it happened at 10:16 in the morning. So what we can do is we can go and search down to 10:16 in the morning and see what the other part of the trade was. So I've backed this time and sales back out to everything involved, and I'm going to go to 10:16 in the morning by pulling down I'm dragging down this button here to the right time. And look, there's been a lot of trades, but if we go to 10:16 a.m., we're going to be able to see that spread. And it was September, right? So here's the spread, okay? Okay, so it was the SEP 240, 250 call spread. And it looks like, so they either bought or sold this call spread. And and it's sort of mid-market, so it's hard to tell exactly what they did. But we were able to at least find the trade, and we know one person bought it, one person sold it. And knowing that this was a spread makes, gives us an extra piece of information. In this case, it doesn't have a whole lot of meaning to me, but it might, depending on what your position is or what's going on at the time. And like I said, I love to dig down in this time and sales all the time. If we go to something like UVXY, same thing, and see what the big trades are that are going on that day. So UVXY, if I go to options time and sales, okay, so July 45 calls, 500 traded, 94 cents, once again mid-market. At 10:04. So once again, we can go to 10:04. And this wasn't part of a spread, so I'm not sure why I'm going to 10:04 right now. But we can see what was happening at the time. And here we've got July 45, 500 trade, July 45 calls. Now, what else is going on at the time? Well, we've got all these spreads going up, these July 31, 32 spreads. We've got people selling puts here. And you can kind of see, what trends are going on with this stuff. So we've got someone selling July 45 calls. Now, these are all just a bunch of one lots. It looks like more than it actually is. But this time and sales stuff is crucial for you if you're trading options, and I would highly recommend checking it out. It's a huge part of my trading, is knowing what's trading around us. And being a market maker in illiquid stocks, at one point I had access to like every trade that happened in whatever stock I was trading, because we were the monopoly. And so I was used to knowing exactly what every player was doing. We can't really do that in this day and age, but we can get some idea of what is going on. And the paper in options is going to tell you the story of what's going on. And if you can dig into it, you can figure out what's going on. And obviously it's easier being standing in a pit and having access to every single order and seeing which broker is bringing in what order, and sometimes which customers are bringing in what order. But next best thing is to have time and sales and be able to dig in on some of this stuff and see what the big players are doing. We can look at VXX here as well, and same thing. Now, there's tons of other stuff on Thinkorswim. One other thing I'll just show you is risk profile. Okay, so BYND. Risk profile is going to show you a chart of how you make or lose money. So here we've got a chart, and it's showing these are the expirations. The blue is July expiration, and the purple is June expiration. But basically, you see, if this thing goes up, we lose money. If this thing goes down, we make money. And you can kind of see where. And if we can customize this chart for different expirations and change it in certain ways. Or we can say, okay, well, what if I took this off? What if I took this particular trade off the chart? How would that change things? Or we can say, well, what if I were to buy something extra? Like, for example, what if, and I sit here and do this stuff all the time. So BYND, let's say I were to turn the short calls I have, I've sold these, and once again, I'm going to switch this layout to the layout that shows my position. So I've sold 3 of these calls. What if I were to go ahead and sell 3 puts against them? So let's say I sold the 105 puts to the downside against them. So sold 3, 1, 2, 3. Now I can go over here and click Analyze Trade, and it's going to pull this into the simulated trade section here. And now we can see, if I click back, that's what the chart looked like before we added that trade. And if we add this trade, you can see how it changes. Well, all of a sudden, I'm not making all this more money if it goes down because I'm short these puts. So all of a sudden, I need things to just kind of stay in that range between 200 and 100. So we can see how that changes my position. Well, what if I just sold 2 puts or 2 puts instead of 1, or just sold 1 put? Well, I still make money if it goes down, just not as much, and the overall money that I collect at the end is higher. Now, this is a September position, so having these lines that show like what happens in July is probably not as useful as having it all the way out to September. Here, if I just take one way of getting rid of the July expiration and bringing up the SEP is for me to take out those July trades, which is just a small little butterfly there. So this is showing, okay, well, if I had sold 1 put, then as long as this stays in this range between 135 and 180, I'm just going to be collecting $2,927 by expiration in September. And like I said, go in here. If you've got options ideas, you can go to the stock that you want to trade. You can select the trades you want to do, and then you can pull up on the Analyze tab this risk profile, and it's going to give you a chart of of how much you make at different prices, and that can really help you kind of understand what a particular options trade is doing for your position. If someone says to you, okay, well, if the stock goes to 135, you'll make $1,000. That's easier to understand than saying, okay, well, I'm short this call and I'm long this put. So these can be very powerful tools to help you understand options positions and what you're doing. You may not know everything in the world about options, but you can certainly read a chart that says, okay, I make money if it goes down, I lose money if it goes up. And all this stuff is much more powerful than just having Robinhood on your phone and just pressing buttons. So that is my case a little bit for Thinkorswim. There's all kinds of more stuff, and I could go on for days, weeks, and months with Thinkorswim, and maybe I will. But for now, I'm going to end. Thanks for watching this, and I will see you soon.